But now I don't see those cobbles and curbs. I don't hear the blues anymore.
Rough Trade is giving away a third of the first 3 months of the Rough Trade Club plus new music membership exclusively to 101 Part-Time Jobs listeners. Become a member of Rough Trade Club New Music and you'll receive the Rough Trade Album of the Month straight to your door every month on exclusive vinyl pressing with exclusive bonus material. Club members have received exclusive pressings of albums from Sufjan Stevens, Sprints, The Last Dinner Party, Julie Byrne and Over Mono, just to name a few, this past year alone. Sign up using the promo code CLUB101POD and you'll get the Rough Trade Album of the Month, English Teacher's excellent debut album, This Could Be Texas, on exclusive Galaxy Gold for a third of the usual price. Here's English Teacher on a recent episode of 101.
How many opportunities do you get to write a debut album and have all of this, sport behind us? I don't know, I really like the idea of holding the bar as being like classic songs.
You only get one shot at a debut.
Don't want the album of the month but still want all the benefits? Sign up to the standard tier using Club 101 Pod and you'll still get the first month free. You'll also get free shipping on all orders, 10% off the bar and on secondhand vinyl in store, and exclusive access to sold out Rough Trade events. So don't hang around. Go to roughtrade.com/club and sign up with the code CLUB101POD. That's CLUB101POD and claim money off the album of the month, English Teachers This Could Be Texas, today. This offer's available to UK residents only. Do you play in bands? I did for the longest time. And I wish that I knew that DistroKid was a thing. I don't even think it existed back then. DistroKid makes music distribution fun and easy with unlimited uploads, and artists keep 100% of your royalties and earnings. 1 million plus artists rely on DistroKid to get their music on Spotify, Apple, YouTube, TikTok, Tidal, Instagram, and all the major streaming services. When you get DistroKid, you can see a DistroKid bank and withdraw your earnings. You get notified when you've earned royalties and you can withdraw via the app. And you can even check your streaming stats on Spotify and Apple. Get 30% off your first year on DistroKid by going to distrokid.com/VIP/101pod. 30% off for your first year. That's not bad. We know it's a tough world out there. Why don't you make it easier for yourself? And to get 30% off that free year as an artist, where you get 100% of your royalties and earnings, go to distrokid.com/VIP/101pod. All right, stay with me. I'll be right back after this.
Hey guys, it is Ryan. I'm not sure if you know this about me, but I'm a bit of a fun fanatic when I can. I like to work, but I like fun too. It's a thing. And now the truth is out there. I can tell you about my favorite place to have fun. Chumba Casino. They have hundreds of social casino style games to choose from with new games released each week. You can play for free anytime, anywhere. And each day brings a new chance to collect daily bonuses. So join me in the fun. Sign up now at ChumbaCasino.com.
No purchase necessary. VGW. Void where prohibited by law. See terms and conditions. 18+.
Hey, you're listening to 101 Part-Time Jobs with me, Giles Bidder, where I speak to bands and artists about how they've made it work. It's a tricky thing, prioritising music and getting it the right way. So I want to hear those stories, those memories, the good times, the interesting times, all of it. On today's episode, we've got the Menzingers. I love this band so much. It was a quick falling in love around 2010. Their EP Hold On Dodge had just come out, and just fell in love with their songs and their lyrics, their feelings. They remind me of Peter Pan's Lost Boys. So good at taking us through nostalgia. They're just about to release their new album, Some of It Was True, this Friday. 3 songs have come out of it and they're all hits. They're all nothing but the hits. It's the Menzingers. What do you expect? And they're coming on tour in the UK early next year. Everywhere around the world, I'm sure, in the next 12 months. So go check out their website, go follow them, and go see them. The show is a hell of an experience. This is a bit of an inside baseball kind of episode, I think. It kind of feels like a bands podcast, but I hope you're into it if you're a Menzingers fan and you're not in a band. Hopefully there are some cool stories in here, some good memories. And I loved it. Thanks so much for listening. If you like 101 Part-Time Jobs, maybe it's your first time hearing it today, please subscribe. Leave a review or a rating if you're that way inclined. We've got episodes coming up with Fiddler, Pip Blom, Snail Mail, and Buck Meek from Big Thief. So by subscribing, that's one sure way to be in the loop when all those come out. Before we get into the episode, I'm going to speak with Rebecca from the band Eka, who's also a brand ambassador for Ampolo, which is a practice at home app. It's getting to the end of wedding season, so if there's anyone out there who's been playing in a wedding band, about to play in a wedding band, and needs to get their chops up on a Paul McCartney bass line where he doesn't play the same thing twice, Ampolo is the app for you.
The one wedding I played as a larger band, I remember I actually messed up my Spotify account because of it. Ampolo would have been a lifesaver.
Yeah, you could hear it back, hear yourself play it, and that probably has, that definitely has that kind of subconscious impact of being like, yeah, I can do that. If I did it then, I can do it again now.
Exactly, yeah. You're not having to run over to your laptop the whole time, set up a new recording channel, all that kind of stuff. That's
Ampolo. It's free. You can download it from the App Store now. Happy practicing. All right, cheers for listening. Here's Tom and Joe from the Menzingers. 101 Part-Time Jobs. It's a great title as well. Some of it was true. It's exactly the kind of thing that
Thank you.
Because it says a lot, you know what I mean? And it's kind of got a smile behind it.
I'm so glad you said that it has a smile behind it. That's what we were kind of going for. We went back and forth between like kind of making an album title. The whole thing, we were trying to not overcook it. We were like, okay, well, it doesn't have to be some kind of epic genius moment if that's forced. Usually things come quickly. So we're like, it could be lighthearted because the entire spirit of writing and recording this time was a lot more lighthearted than it's been in the past. So we were really stoked that we found something that was, dare I say, cheeky? Did I say it right? Is that working in there?
Yeah. A little cheeky, yeah.
Well, Menzingers always had a cheeky thing. I feel like being introduced to you in like 2010, shout out Kieran Kelly for telling all of his friends about Menzingers and telling everyone to go see you at Fest around then. When I was seeing your videos and and like seeing your socials, I guess, and I always got that thing, that impression of, you and your brothers and your siblings in a small town, like going around causing a bit of chaos. I felt, I felt an affinity with that because that's how I grew up. We would go to France on school trips and come back with like bangers, and like try and set off fireworks and like set stuff on fire. Not in a bad way, but like doing like kind of chaotic stuff, but in a innocent way. That's what I get from Menzingers.
That might be the nicest thing that anybody's really said about us. It's totally true. We loved fucking around, not in a way that was rooted in some kind of like disturbing
malice,
want to hurt. Yeah, there's no malice. I'm sure we did fucking piss people off, but always trying to do something fun. Even getting into trouble at festivals. I immediately go back to 2010, like you're talking about when we first went over to the UK and all the dumb shit that we got in trouble with doing there.
I think we would call it scrappy. Like that's what we would, that would be like our word for it. Like we were just like scrappy kids, There's
no other way to start a band though, is there?
Well, as we've seen, I guess there is, but I don't think there's any other good way to start.
Because you kind of, it's coming, when you start a band and it's going good and the local shows are happening and you meet people and people are backing you. People are being like, you can tell when people have got your back. I guess one of the big things, and I think this is I think what this show is going to be about with you guys is like 101 Part-Time Jobs. Part of that job, part of like your remit is trying to make your fun happen all the way through something that is kind of has a kind of serious infrastructure, like releasing records and going on tour. There's money there. You got to be smart. You got to look after yourself, look after people around you. Looking back now, like with years of wisdom and reflection, do you think were you pretty smart back then in terms of being like, okay, this is something that we can make sustainable. We're going to give it a shot while still having fun the whole time.
I just wanted to say everything you just said was incredibly poignant. Sorry to interrupt you. I was just resonating with it. Like, Jesus, it's totally trying to have fun while balancing the seriousness or at least, the things that have to be accountable in this situation. And it has become a career. And, we do have a crew that we pay and employs, and there's so many people whose careers are based off of our band, whether it's the people at Epitaph or our manager Tim, our booking agent Phil. We really kind of keep the things flowing. There was one tour that we did, and I tried to do like a rough estimate about what, how much money was brought to the bartenders, the venue, the sales and the alcohol, the babysitters, the ride share that went to, and it was like probably in the millions of dollars of like one tour between everybody who created this microeconomy that was just around our band. So it's pretty fucking wild what that's grown into. To answer your question, to go back of what you were saying, I don't think we were necessarily very smart. We were smarter than some other bands in the sense that we built something that we now share 4 ways. So all the decisions are made 4 ways, and the way that we compensate ourselves is done equally 4 ways. And we see a lot of bands that don't do that. And I think that we started to do that really early on. And that was smart because, what do people fight about? They fight about love and money, and that's the kind of. So we haven't had to worry about existential threats involving like life circumstances and egos and stuff like that. So I think that part was smart. But as far as like saving or appropriately allocating the resources, we were definitely not so smart. I don't think we like to have fun. Yeah.
And you talk about your team and your booking agent and tour manager, Dave. You started working together, and he became part of your setup because you got along.
Yeah.
And you had a good energy between you.
Totally.
Yeah. I always say like we always, like all of us in our crew, especially Dave, because he goes so far back, and Scott, our tour manager, we always we grew together. Dave learned how to be a sound guy as we were learning how to be a touring band. We all kind of like helped each other and in our respective ways. But so I think like just incrementally like learning together and building and from the ground up, and that's what really like keeps a crew. Like we're so lucky now to have a few members of our crew that have just been with us for so long that it just feels like they're part of the band. Like there's no, I see it. It would be very weird if they weren't with us at this point dynamically. Yeah.
So Dave has been with us forever. He's our front of house engineer. With the first tour that we did in 2010, he was driving a van. So he was friends with Kieran, who we mentioned before. He was driving us around, and that was it. Not doing any sound. He was just rolling with it. And then if there was a venue where he eventually stepped in and was like, all right, I see that this is going to end in a disaster. I'll step in here. And we brought him over to the States, and we were doing a literal arena tour very early on in our career. I believe it was 2011. And he was going to come over and do monitors. So we were like, we'll have Dave on monitors. We'll get all this shit going. And we get there, and the first day, the front of house / tour manager of Rise Against, who was the band that we were touring with, who said to Dave, "Why don't you just jump behind the front house desk and do it there? There's no reason why you just do monitors." So the first time that Dave did front house for us on a tour when he was with us was in front of like 5,000, 6,000, 7,000 people.
That is incredible. And I was just thinking, to talk about how growing is so important, and part of growth, you should grow slowly. Growing slowly is a strong and steady. That's not growing slowly as a sound person, is it?
No, that's like those videos you see on TikTok where the moms just toss the baby into the pool because they naturally know how to swim. That was us with Dave.
I mean, growing's hard, right? Growing is hard, and always think of that analogy of the lobster where it gets too big for its shell, and it's fucking squished into this shell, and it's really painful and really hurting, and it kind of squeezes out. And it's really fucking painful.
Yeah.
And then it kind of leaves that exoskeleton behind and gets a new shell. I know that's a real earnest or big thing to say, but playing music as an artist and coming to terms with that's who we are, that's who I am. That's what I'm going to try and put my mind to and be sensible about it. How in the last, look, you've been a band, I'm going to say 50, 20 years?
Just about there. Yeah, just about that.
That's a lot of growing.
Yeah.
That's going to come with times hard conversations, right? And have there been a lot of those hard conversations? Have you found that you could be best friends with someone and still kind of butt heads at times, and to have those kinds of real conversations? Look, totally fine if you don't want to talk about this, of course, But that kind of real life shit, was that something that you really had to like look in the mirror, but also kind of like face each other on, you know, over the years?
Absolutely. You know, there's the growing pains, or like I always call them. There's the artistic ones, which I think we should just leave out of this. You know, like there's me as an artist and my vision of myself, blah, 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 that kind of shit. But when it comes to actually making it a job, you know, staying on the 101 part-time jobs, there's been some extremely difficult conversations and some extremely, you know, difficult growing pains. And there are growing pains that come in the form of making mistakes that aren't necessarily socially, you know, like oops, we didn't know that we needed to save X amount for this thing because taxes, or we didn't know that we needed a certain type of insurance or a permit or things like that. The regular growing pains. I'm sure every fucking, what do musicians do? Barber shops, tattoo parlor. I'm sure we all make the same mistakes. But the really difficult ones are definitely within our band, the difficult conversations of having to come up with a culture and a set of kind of bigger rules that we can revert back to follow when making decisions, you know? So it's like, well, are we this kind of person? Are we this kind of band? And if does this decision made for us already by dictating that from the top down? Like, do we not do these kind of, let's say, sponsorships? That's one for us, is we're pretty easily on the same page where there's certain things that if someone came and they do come and say, hey, we'll give you $10,000 to do this. And we're just like, no. Not doing that, even though that's a fucking chunk of change.
I think that we've always morally been on the same page from the start. So like that makes a lot of those bigger decisions that would normally maybe take a band down a different path. It makes those things a little bit easier because and even if we're not, it's never anything that is that, you know, we're not like that far off from each other. Like we can usually come to some kind of middle ground. And I think throughout the years, that's one thing like we've been able to get better at. So like the growing of like getting better at like communicating to each other of like, well, I don't know if we should do this because of that reason, you know? And it's like, I think that's like one big factor of growing that we've gotten like good at, you know? I think it's like only getting better. Yeah.
It's decision making, right? Lots of decisions every fucking day.
Yeah. And it's not easy to make a decision when four people have the same say and don't have separated things. You know, it's a beautiful thing that we do, and I love it that way. But like in reality, ruling by committee in every single kind of facet that you could think of is not easy. Like you have to come up with great compromises to make sure that everyone's happy. Or, you know, we don't need to do like succession level politicking or anything ridiculous like that, but it is kind of like, or so, you know, not everybody wants to make a decision on something if it's like an emotionally difficult decision, so then you're like fucking bothering somebody, like all that kind of shit really comes in. But like Joe said, we're just getting better and better at that.
Great. And those kind of decisions could be anything from like staying at Hotel A or Hotel B, this part of town, that part of town, to like the huge things.
That's why we're literally, one thing I've heard, I don't know if I read it in some fucking book or whatever, but trying to make decisions that make decisions for you. Like what is something that will eliminate a series of decisions that you have to make is always really good. So in that case, for the hotel one specifically, instead of our tour manager having to text all this separately, we hired a travel agent. So now the travel agent goes and picks what is ostensibly the best hotel for our situation within the price range that we give them. So it's like, there you go. Now we don't have to fight over that.
And what are those prerequisites? Are we talking like sauna?
Oh my God. Can you imagine? I fucking wish. No, nothing has to do with comfort. Everything has to do with, can we park the bus there? How far away is it? Can we get in there early? Those are they all trump the continental breakfast or whatever.
Yeah. Maybe in a few years it'll work its way up to like you will be needing, you know, those amenities, but I don't know. As of now, it's like we were just in Virginia Beach and stayed at but we had a room that was, you know, it was a party. It was like a party beach motel, but it was the closest place to it. So
and the only one we could afford. Every one of them was like $500 a night or whatever.
So it's not always very glamorous.
Yeah. Has it ever got to like cruising altitude, you know, talking about decisions? And, you know, I'm thinking, you know, with hip hop and rap, we've always seen people like take control of their brand, you know, and like they're the number one fucking person. I feel like in bands, very quickly, a first or second record, you might be on an indie label and you get an agent and you're working with a few people. It's quite easy to like relinquish those kinds of duties. Has that been like, I feel like keeping control of like everything and you kind of being the number one at any kind of point, like that seems to be more and more important, because everything's like the music industry and everything around it. And like you say, Tom, that ecosystem, everything changes all the time. Yeah. And so you still got to be in control, right?
Sure, totally. Yeah. And we've seen a lot of, just what's around us. We've seen people not be in control. And that's worked fine for them in some cases, where you have a person whose job it is to curate the aesthetic that you put out into the world. There's people that are just a vehicle for artistry, where they don't write their own songs, that kind of thing. And and the older I get, the less that I don't think there's anything wrong with that these days. I mean, I think that if it's it sucks and it's completely empty. It's still essentially an innocuous thing. Like, who cares if some fucking kid is like a pop star? Like, I don't give a shit. But sometimes it's bad. Sometimes there are people that really want to be involved in decision making just to be involved in decision making. The kind of parasitic people, or if you phone it in, if you start to like not give a shit about what you're doing, then what are you even doing besides just kind of like putting out the same record every 2 or 3 years to stay in the same cycle? And I think there is a sadness to that one. And in our particular case, we're really good at staying in control of the things that we want to be in control in. Like whatever, even it comes down to the designs that we use on the merch that we sell. There's a whole lot of thought, conversation, and planning that goes into that for us, and we're heavily involved at each stage of that. So we really are in control of, like you used, like of the brand or whatever of our band. Which we really, when it comes down to the songwriting, the way that we present ourselves, even down to the cities that we play in. Like, we get a routing. We'll say, hey, we want to do this kind of tour and this time of the year. And we go on a phone call with an hour or two of all four of us, our agent and our manager, and they'll have a pre-routed thing. And that is decisions made. But even like this European tour that we just announced that was meant to be 40% longer. And we were like, no, we're going for 3 weeks. And then we got back. We're like, no, we want to play these cities. And we was very much, involved in those decision making.
I honestly do believe that we had a lot of really good people to look up to. Like a lot of bands and managers, tour managers, crew of older bands that we went on tour with. We always were like learning. And we were learning like, how to, I don't think we knew it at the time, but we were learning how to create some kind of longevity with our band. I don't know if like, it's like you're in it, so you don't know that that's what, those are the traits that you're picking up on. But I think that's like what it was, like touring with the Bouncing Souls and their manager, Kate. Like, I remember, in the first times, this is just a very small example, but one of the first times we were on tour with them, we had our stuff on the side of the stage, all of our gear. And their tour manager was like, get your stuff out of the way. This is in the way. And then just like from that moment on, we learned, so we learned, and it wasn't like of necessarily like we weren't getting in trouble or anything. We were like, oh, that's something you don't do. Okay, next thing, and the lack of, ego that goes into that too, where it's just like, oh no, like we could put our stuff wherever we want, like we're just like, no, we're here. And we're thankful that we're on this tour, and now we're learning. And just that little thing we learned, I think that we all had our eyes open to those kinds of things. And then you just like collect those things over the years and know what to do and what not to do.
Totally. I think there's two facets of that. One of them is that there's no coincidence that the year that we were finally able to not work, not have to work other jobs. We still, had part-time jobs and hustles and all that shit here and there. But the year that we did not have to work anymore was 2012, in the sense that we were able to pay rent and food from the band. And that was the year that we did several tours with the Bouncing Souls. So that's not a coincidence. We were able to learn from the way that they operated as best friends in a band, as like, grown men that we really looked up to, that were able to build a career and start families. And Kate Hiltz, who was an absolutely incredible human being with just the biggest love in her heart, but also takes no shit and is able to just smash through a world, especially she was able to smash through like a wildly male dominated system and become one of the fucking best at it, and taught us so much and cared so well for us. And then the other facet is that we worked a bunch of jobs. So we before the band knew how to go to work, I guess, which seems like a completely redundant no duh kind of situation, but you'd be really surprised at how many bands kind of their entire lives have just been steamrolling through the universe waiting for people to hand them things, and never really, and I don't have a chip on my shoulder about that, but it's just we learned that you had to, like, when you put in work you get a result, and also that there's ways to do things. So if Joe's, your example gave that our shit was fucking everywhere on the side of the stage, it wasn't because we were, well, it was because we were aloof, careless, just trying to party, but we also just, no one ever said that we couldn't do that. So once we realized, like, oh, there's actually, everyone has to be safe, and there's like a way that will make this work better so that everyone can flow right. So we started to learn that shit, and we kind of really took off with it.
I remember in Kingston, and I was hanging around, and I learned that day that you restring before every show, and I was like, whoa.
Yeah,
because we serious.
Because all of our fucking strings would break, so we started to restring the guitars like every 2 shows or every show. We just had to do it. It was like, okay, we got it. At that time we had a deal, I think, with Ernie Ball finally, so our strings cost like $2 a pack or something. But
nice.
Yeah, we were like, well, we can't be breaking strings on stage. That's not professional. So, yeah.
What was it like? A lot of people, I mean, tell me if not true for you, but you start playing music as like a sigh of relief when you get home from work or school. You play music to hang out with your friends, and maybe you want to practice on the weekday nights, then go play a show on the weekend. It's a very social thing, to kind of counterbalance the stuff that you have to do in life. How did you find that transition of like the band being the thing, the band being the serious thing? And we'll get to it later, but you talk about in the press release about some of it was true, about how it is going back to what is that like lightning in a bottle that makes the Menzingers. How do we keep getting back to that while continue moving forward?
For me, I think I could probably speak for everybody, but I think it's kind of having this idea of like always wanting to learn. Like, all right, when you're in a relationship, any kind of relationship, it works out so much better in everyone's favor if you're always trying to learn and better yourself rather than just thinking like you got this, and I think a lot of bands are like, we got this. We know what works. We know what kind of music works. We know what we should do. We know what a band on X number album should do at this point. There's a lot of like, there's a lot of molds you can fit in. And I think like we're just the kind of people, like musically especially, that we don't want to just settle. We want to like keep learning about like how we could be better. And this was like our way of, it would be so easy to hit cruise control, I guess, at this point, and just kind of like do whatever we think would work. But we wanted to learn, like we wanted to get back to a place, like, I don't know, it's almost like learning to get back to a place of like how to do it like we used to, and it's like a tangible thing. Like, I think a lot of bands like try to do that and then maybe like fall short. But if like, I don't know, you just put yourself in it and have fun writing it and try to block out all of those things that you think are expected of you, it's a lot easier. And we're very lucky to have the 4 of us just keep each other in check with that. Like we know, we feed off each other very well.
What's the thing that, like, what's your kind of happy place for that? If it's getting a bit like, say you've been working on a record or working on a set of tunes and it's kind of stagnating or just kind of not really there, or it feels, and I imagine I've been there plenty of times, being in the room and being frustrated, and then all of a sudden you're taking it a bit too seriously, and then you're like, fuck, you feel like an ass, and like what gets you out of that? Is that like going for a fucking going out on a night out together? Is that like taking a break? What's like that thing that pulls you back to like having fun, to feeling light on your feet again?
When we're in the box writing, like we did for this record, we don't have a formula that or a system in place that is steadfast Dunsgiots for how we're going to write a record and how we work the best. We're constantly trying to improve the way that we write and read about how people write and incorporate those things together. But one thing that we know is we get in the room. That's the thing for us. So don't have a good answer for how we bust out of it when you get into that headspace, like you're just saying. But one thing that we do very well, and we didn't necessarily talk about it, it kind of happened naturally, is the jamming. So improvising before, at the beginning, and at the end of practice or in the middle. We've gotten very good at saying what you articulated. So before, everyone would just sit in the room and be mad, and I'm sure you've been in that fucking position before. But now we've gotten very good at being like, hey, this vibe's not going. We are going to beat this song to the fucking ground. And people say that the best songs come all at once. I think that there's some truth to that. And that if you're writing a song, it won't be if you're like really working on a song for too long, it won't be good. I don't believe that. But I do know that we get the best way that we collectively shake ourselves out of it is by saying, hey, this sucks, and then kind of just jamming, which is what brought us to like it in the first place. And to answer your question of like how it went from something you do when you get home from work or school and it's that thing, and to how do you transition into the full band and all that kind of stuff, I think a lot of it was playing with other people and the just inherent power and lack of boredom that brings. It's kind of like you said, you bring back the bangers from France. Well, what's better than playing loud guitars and hitting a drum set as loud as you want, when we were younger? That's like that collective feeling of power is like fucking blowing off fireworks or, smashing light bulbs or whatever it is, some kind of like cheeky shit. But that, and then life is just, from a zoomed out perspective, life is so boring sometimes or lack of it or tired that playing the show is what changes that. That's always fun. That's like a whole sensory experience for everybody involved, and that I think is what really keeps us going back. Music's great, recording is fucking beautiful, it's so exciting, but we don't even get paid for that. We get paid to play a show, so that real excitement and a big part that brings it across is really what keeps us addicted to it, I think.
I think just listening to music too, we've always been, whether it be in cars, practice spaces, whatever, together, listening to music and just like relating to each other with those things that you can't really express in words, but you get, and I think that's another muscle that we've really been able to build over the years. Like Tom said too, it's almost this, you feed off each other, when something's not working, or when something is working, and you might not be able to explain what that little thing is that's carrying this song along or whatever, but but we're all on the same page with it, and you can just tell, like, and you just chase that. It's like chasing this high of like getting to the finish end, and you're all like, yes, like, you get fired up, and the end's in sight, and you just stay on track.
Yeah, ace. And that live thing is, the Menzingers are a party band. Me and Eva, Menzingers in London is our fucking date night. Like every time, Eva's lived here for 5 years. I think you played the weekend she moved here. Like that's an anniversary for us. And I think you look around at a Menzingers show and people are going, like, people are having fun. It's like, it's a party. It's a real party. Actually, I overcooked it last time when you played at the Roundhouse. I got a bit too fucked up.
That tends to happen when we visit our old friends. When we play with them.
That's the way it goes. You get excited, we still got a little bit of children inside of ourselves somewhere, right?
Absolutely.
Do you see that? When you look out and you see people, maybe it's us, or it could be a stranger, or someone you've known for years. That's the thing that like fuels that's a big fuel of the Menzingers, is it?
Yeah, that's what literally fuels us. That's a great analogy for it. It's like the fucking guys shoveling the coal into the front of the train. That's what keeps it going, man. And
that's a good analogy.
Yeah, that's like just to throw back what you said before about what we changed on the record. Not necessarily something that we changed, it's something that we embraced. On this record, we did a lot of it was recorded mostly. All of the songs are recorded live in a room. So we redubbed some of the guitars, and we like to make a joke of like calling a live recorded record, and that being part of this. Some of it was true, I think, because it's not. Obviously, it is not a fully live record record, but there are guitar tracks and all the drums basically. And Joe, you can speak to that or be more explicit of the truth of that. And bass were recorded live in the room. We really were embracing what we are. And what we are is a band that goes around. People love to come to our shows, and that's us. And so instead of layering 100 guitars, or in reality 6 fucking takes of a rhythm guitar on top of each other, the entire record is 2 guitars with like a third one that we call the hero guitar, and then the rest of it's just fucking live. There's like one harmony, and that kind of was what we did differently this time around, was re-embracing that live aspect of the band.
People love to say about like that Nirvana thing, like, oh, you know, Kurt Cobain and Chris, they made mistakes and kept it on the record. And that's a real nice idea, but like following through with that is a very different thing, right?
Dude, I'm so glad you said that. There's been, we've all got some experience working with different recording software, and we've recorded records for our friends and produced some stuff, and there always is like a situation where it's like, yeah man, we want to record it live, or we recorded it live, and then first thing I think when my friends are sending me a record and they're like, yeah dude, we did it live this time, I'm like, oh god. Because it's charming and romantic, but Jesus.
101 part-time jobs, 101 part-time jobs. Let's talk about the record. Some of it was true. The 2 songs that have come out are absolute rages. There's like,
thanks,
Thank you.
Menzingers is like, there's this power pop thing, there's this Replacements thing, there's this like New Jersey thing. Like that's the magic. When you were writing this record, was it like when those, Tom, you mentioned earlier that songs come in batches?
Yeah,
the best songs come in batches. Was that true for this record? Were there songs on it that were instant fuck yeses, like, or like lines of lyrics or licks, bits where you're like, yeah, damn, that's it.
Totally. I think even just talking about the 2 songs that are out right now, one of them is called No Place in This World for me, and one of them is called Hope Is a Dangerous Little Thing, little mouth soup. But the No Place in This World for me was one of the first songs that we wrote for the record, and when we wrote it, it was a punk song. It was faster. It was, kind of one of the faster songs that we had written as a band, or like quote-unquote punkest songs. And while we were rehearsing it at the studio, or while we were trying to lay it down at the studio, the producer Brad Cook came into the room and he said, why don't you guys just, or maybe it was just over the little speaker, he goes, just try something for me, why don't you guys try this in halftime? And as soon as we did that, it just stuck, and we knew that's what it needed to be. We played the song maybe 3 or 4 times, and then I think, and that's one of the tracks where my guitar track is literally the 3rd time I ever played it, and there's no punches and no layers and no nothing, and there's mistakes like kind of hidden in the background. And that was a moment, as soon as we played that halftime in the room, was like you just mentioned, it was a moment where we were like, yes, this is exactly what we want to be. This is like a new sound for us and what we think for at large. So there was a novelty to it, and it just felt really, really good. Yeah, totally.
That was a true lightning bolt moment for sure. That was one of those you'll remember for a long time. Yeah.
For the Hope one, we had the chorus forever and just muscled it into this poppier song. So it's kind of like a dark subject matter that slipped in, and that was a eureka moment too. We were like, okay, I guess so. Here's how it's going to go.
Fuck yeah. That kind of trio element of like dark lyrics, positive sound.
Great way to describe it. Yeah, totally. A dark lyrics, a positive sound that band is so fucking good at, and another huge influence on us.
No Place in This World for me. That having at halftime in the chorus, I'm thinking of it. There's a bounce to the lyrics. The vocals give it that bounce.
Yeah,
and I imagine that's harder to get that bounce when it's quicker.
Yeah, it wasn't there. It was more like frantic, and then that's what sold us on it. Was you just described it perfectly? That bounce in the chorus. Totally.
It's crazy how a vibe of a song can change by just slowing it down. It really is. I mean, if you heard the demo, it's a completely different feel. Yeah.
Ace. What's your favorite line? I mean, you could both answer this question. What's your favorite line on the album? What's your favorite lyric? Because your lyrics have always been so damn good. You're such a, I mentioned it earlier, there's this coming of age, there's heartbreak, there's pain, there's a lot of joy. On this record, what are your favorite ones?
I can't pick one of my own. I got to pick one of Greg's.
No.
Well, you can pick one of your own.
if you're thinking, I will say in the meantime that as somebody, I don't write any lyrics for the band. That's all the singers that do that. And
you've written some of the best lyrics we've ever had in the band. Joe's we've taken things that Joe said and turned them into lyrics. One time, Joe we were hanging out and Joe said, "I don't want to be an asshole anymore," and Greg took that and it became like that's like their most streamed song on Spotify.
Okay, well, yeah, I mean
that is incredible.
I guess there's an asterisk to that statement that I made then, but I am always very I constantly floored, and I truly mean this, and I don't know if I've ever said it. I'm constantly floored by Tom and Greg's lyrics, because as somebody that doesn't sit down with the pen and paper and on tour and write lyrics down, things come to me in a different way, I guess. And so I can so much just appreciate that process. But then, you're learning the songs and you're hearing the songs back. And once in a while, I won't even really know what they say. And then I'll be like, oh, we're in the studio. Hey, Tom, what did you say here? Greg, what did you say here? And I'll just sit there and really ruminate on it. And I'm just like, God damn, dude, nice. I'm constantly taken back by, these guys.
Thank you. That's amazing.
That's so nice.
My current one is that I'll say that, will change as I change. But the one that I was real stoked about that I wrote in the studio, I believe, is the second verse of this song that we have on the record called Nobody Stays. That is about you have people that you met and you've known over the last, now we've been adults for so fucking long, that are just gone and you're never going to see them again. You might not even be able to find them on social media or whatever. There were so many people when we first moved to Philadelphia that I worked with or was great drinking buddies with or, romantically involved with and stuff that I don't sometimes, there's this guy, I always think of him. I can't remember his last name, so I'll never find him, but we were good friends and we worked together. And that idea that he's gone sucks, but it's totally fine as well. So there's the preamble to the whole, that's what the song's about. But the second verse in the studio I came up with was, I've come to find the skyline lost its mind and I can't find your name. Only old ghosts remain. The city sleeps and I'm the lucid dream and I can't find your name. Only old ghosts remain. That's my favorite thing I wrote for the record so far.
That is awesome.
Thank you very much.
Pretty sick.
That is great. I think one of my favorite of yours is about the splinters and the spoilt liver.
Yep.
I think about that all the time. I think about that when I'm too drunk or hungover, which is I don't want to sound like a big shot or something. That's a lot, guys. Yeah. No, I think about that line a lot.
Hell yeah, thank you. That from the obituaries. Yeah. And I think that there is something about that aspect of being hungover that serves as the truth. Like you're being hungover isn't a really emotional place, but it's also the hangover that we use and talk about in our lyrics is an analogy for the down part of your life after something big or after a relationship or after whatever. It's like you can't inevitably have something that's great, self-caused kind of depressive state often, but as part of a story, it serves that purpose.
I think that's where the Menzingers sits. Menzingers sits in having an amazing time and that bridge of the hangover, of thinking about the bad stuff as well the next day. Yeah, love it. I'm such a big fan. If I've never said, I think I've said that already about 50 times this episode, but I'm a huge fan of the Menzingers. I think it's so fucking rad. And it's just a cherry on top that you're very, very lovely. So thank you.
Thank you so goddamn much,
man.
Thank you,
man. Thank you.
Hey, it's Kaylee Cuoco for Priceline. Ready to go to your happy place for a happy price? Well, why didn't you say so? Just download the Priceline app right now and save up to 60% on hotels. So whether it's Cousin Kevin's Kazoo Concert in Kansas City, go Kevin, or Becky's Bachelorette Bash in Bermuda, you never have to miss a trip ever again. So download the Priceline app today. Your savings are waiting.
Go to your happy place for a happy price. Go to your happy price, Priceline.
I mean, I've always been rubbish at all the jobs I've ever had. I didn't really get a full-time job until mid-20s. I kind of was hanging around, clawing onto people's couches for a long time and not really having a place of my own. Eventually got a place of my own, this place, when I was like 27. And like, I didn't necessarily find like the work hard, but I found work culture hard. And I was so bad at things, and I'd kind of drop stuff and maybe press reply all a couple of times a week, you know, and just generally be that person. So this question relates to being in the band and also kind of, you know, any time of your life, really, work or not. But looking back on those like gaffes, those work fails, those mistakes. I mean, I just worked at Times Radio last year and Talk Sport, and I used doing the adverts for the radio, and I'd quite often put in like the wrong dates on them. So you'd hear an advert being like, listen to tomorrow's game with Arsenal Liverpool. And it'd be like the week after. And there's like hundreds of thousands of people hearing that. And I have to apologize profusely. When I'm saying all that shit, what do you have any memories that come to mind for yourself? Or you're seeing Joe with an impish smile and a nod?
I have one. I screwed up pretty bad when I was probably like 24, 25. I had a job where I was a courier. So I would just deliver a lot of like legal documents or other time sensitive information to people in the city, but also people outside of Philadelphia up to like 2 hours away. So it was a lot of going into law firms and places like that with these boxes or envelopes full of papers that I didn't look at, but they were important. And I had to go to Harrisburg, which was like 2 hours from Philadelphia once. And they needed it by whatever time of day, 4 p.m. And I don't remember why, because this was so long ago, but I can only imagine I just didn't care. And for some reason, I just didn't go. And I was like, I'll just go in the morning. I already have the documents. I'll just take them in the morning. There was probably some other pressing thing that I wanted to do, like party or something, or go to a show. So I was like, I'll just do it in the morning. It'll be fine. They'll get it first thing. And that morning, I got a call from the courier place being like, did you take that? They haven't received it. I was like, oh yeah, I just figured I'd take it in the morning. Like, saying this now sounds ridiculous because how aloof I was, but they were, I don't know how important it was, but I know it was very important because that lawyer, whoever it was, like raised hell with the company. And it was like a really, really big thing. And that eventually led to me like being suggested that maybe I don't work there anymore because the guy that owned the place was just a super sweet old guy that was way too nice to fire me. But he was like, you know, suggesting that maybe I do something else. And I'll never know how many people's lives I like messed up with that. But yeah,
that'll keep you awake at night.
Some guys in jail stuck there.
The way I see it now is that's on them for trusting a 24-year-old drummer who didn't care about anything else with that kind of information. So,
how about you, Tom?
I've got a lot. Yeah, there's one of them that comes to mind was when I didn't realize I had work one day and I took acid the day before, but it wasn't like a regular acid situation. It was like it lasted maybe 24. And I don't, you know, I'm not in the habit of unsafe psychedelics these days. This was when I was very young. I took acid and it lasted like a good 26 hours. It was like an LSA situation or something else is going on in there. But I had to go to work the next morning and it didn't go well. I was working for Domino's Pizza at the time, delivering pizza, but thankfully that shift was one of the like 4 shifts I ever did where I wasn't driving. So I had to go in and just work in the kitchen because somebody was on vacation or whatever, and I fucked up like a bunch of pizza orders. I kind of was just like in there, spent a lot of time in the cooler. I was the only person in the building besides the other driver, and she was kind of not all that with it. You know, she had no idea that I was tripping fucking balls.
How intense was the trip? Was it visuals? Was it periphery? Was it just you were a bit spangled?
Lots of insane visuals that were like the most intense of anything I've ever experienced in my life. But by that morning, it was more of like a kind of perception, like let's say a spatial awareness situation. Thankfully, there's no knives involved. There's no but yeah, a whole lot of like when you walk, you know how you walk into a room and that room becomes you, essentially. Like there was one room that had like a red light, and I walked into that room and everything was fucking real red. But yeah, that's why I spent so much time in that freezer because there was like mist coming off everything. That was a pretty fucking dumb bonehead moment.
Got home from that shift, you're like straight on the couch.
Oh my god, the greatest rest of my life came after that. After that shit. I was 19.
Excellent. Hey, Tom and Joe, thank you so much. 101 Part-Time Jobs. This is the thing. I love doing these chats. Thanks so much for being up for it.
Absolutely. Thanks so much for having us.
Thank you, man. This was so much fun, man.
So there they were, Tom and Joe from the Menzingers. Their new album, Some of It Was True, is out this Friday. That's exciting. I still get excited about albums coming out on Fridays. Even doing this, speaking to bands every week, I still get that little buzz, that little Friday feeling, you know? I don't do Thursday night. You wait till the morning. Wait till you wake up. Come on, it's Christmas, kids. They're on tour in the UK. Go get your tickets. That's happening in February. I'll see you then. And I'll be back with an episode with Katie Gregson McLeod later on this week and Buck Meek from Big Thief next week. So if you want to know when those episodes arrive, click that subscribe button. Cheers.
With Lucky Land Slots, you can get lucky just about anywhere.
Dearly beloved, we are gathered here today to... Has anyone seen the bride and groom?
Sorry, we're here. We were getting lucky in the limo and we lost track of time.
No, Lucky Land Casino, with cash prizes that add up quicker than a guest registry.
In that case, I pronounce you lucky.
Play for free at LuckyLandSlots.com. Daily bonuses are waiting. No purchase necessary. Void where prohibited by law. 18+. Terms and conditions apply. See website for details.